Hello. We are making a video together. Yes, make a video together. My baby and I. Yes. Yes. And it is nice. Yes. It is nice. It is nice. This is nice. Oh yeah. It's very nice, is that? And I'm real sluggish. Okay. Sluggish. As sluggish as one can be. And when I got up earlier, I actually felt like fainting. So that's how sluggish I am right now. Really sluggish and tired. And I have heart problems, and I have a feeling of helplessness and hopelessness. And I have done a meditation on that earlier, more extensively. I talked to my computer and the haters, and I explained how I feel, and I thought, okay, maybe I can recapture some of that and make a video about it and talk about these emotions and emotions of bleakness and helplessness and hopelessness. So, which is, of course, a lot of people have that as emotional pain. It's something that a lot of people suffer from, and a lot of people try to avoid, so a lot of people are afraid of those kind of feelings in the present particularly, but the reason why is because they have a trauma that has to do with helplessness and hopelessness and bleakness and abandonment and a feeling of learned helplessness. Like, this is a term in psychology. Learned helplessness, it comes from the behavioral era of psychology with Skinner and Watson and this other guy, forgot the name now, Albert Bandura's, I guess, who has done absolutely horrifically unethical tests on animals and children. And those tests are no longer allowed. But then I see through my activism, I see that there are many universities that are not even paying attention to what the laboratories that are doing work in their universities, in their facilities, are actually doing. They're not even looking over their shoulders. So this is very alarming. So learned helplessness is a term that comes from the behavioral era of psychology, and that means a person or an animal gets into a situation where there is no way out, some kind of trap of some sort, but not just a trap. It's a trap where there's suffering involved. They have done horrific tests on monkeys where they had squares on the floor and of different colors, and then first only the red squares would get have an electric shock, so the monkey would avoid all the red squares, and then they will add another color that gives electric shocks, and then the monkey had to tippy-toe around those and try to jump from one safe square to another, real horrific, until finally all the squares were giving out electric shocks, and the monkey got into a state of total despair and learned helplessness, where the monkey started to bite himself because he didn't know any further what to do. So we see this today with teenage girls who cut themselves, for example, So it starts out through this type of total despair. They have been raped, they have been They have been exploited by their fathers, by male figures usually in the family, by maybe teachers, classmates, people at the job, and so on. And they start cutting themselves. And then later on, the cutting becomes an addiction because the corpus callosum creates a dopamine addiction. Because the corpus callosum in the brain is the scale which always tries to create an equilibrium, okay, between the two hemispheres and in the whole body. So when there is an overload of pain, then the corpus callosum creates a balance by signaling to produce endorphins on a massive scale to balance out that pain or whatever feelings of discomfort there are. Cold, and the body goes into like the peripheral nervous system. The corpus callosum sends out signals to the peripheral nervous system for the hair to stand up and for vasoconstriction and so on. Okay, so there's a whole cascade of ripple effects that go through the body when certain things are triggered by outside stimuli like coldness or pain or terrible situation. So but addiction is that's a different dopamine addiction loop is a different subject, of course, than learned helplessness. But eventually, ultimately, all of these work together and in the brain as a whole system, of course. But learned helplessness is also happening in everyday living, everyday psychology. Like, for example, when we live with a partner who persistently tells the other person, you can't drive, you're not a safe driver, you can't function on your own, you have to have me in your life. That's a very narcissistic thing to say to a partner, to assure that the partner stays. It's a codependent, narcissistic thing to do. And it causes psychological damage to the partner, to the point where the partner feels helpless and dependent, even though the partner doesn't want to be dependent on that person. So, and that's the situation with me right now. So I get into this state of learned helplessness where I'm being told that I can't survive on my own. I'm constantly be reassured through negative affirmations that I cannot defend myself, that I can't fend for myself, that I can't make it alone, that I can't drive, that I would have an accident, that I would be raped and killed, and so on. Persistent, consistent messages that are bombarded into my brain. And so that's one way of learned helplessness. But then there are many factors that cause learned helplessness. Childhood trauma for sure, it's like when we had a mother who shamed us and who was impatient with us and who scolded us and who had fits because at 6 years old we were not able to spell correctly. Those kind of things, okay? So all of this can lead to learned helplessness trauma. It's also a form of PTSD, of course. And that is a major driving force, of course. Those people who have not been traumatized in their daily lives, they function much better. So they're not if they hadn't been traumatized as children, as adults, they can function much better. You know, they will also not be driven into learned helplessness that quickly by outside circumstances in the present moment. So all of this plays into this, and then also, you know, when we have a couple of incidences where we didn't succeed in school or math or giving presentations, or where we ran away from difficult situations. Like I used to always run away from the violin concerts. I was playing violin in the past, and we had school concerts. I would hide. I would be so afraid to be seen by the audience of, I don't know, over 1,000 people. I was terrified of that, even though I was hiding behind the other violinists in the third violin, all the way in the last row. But still, I felt like they could still see my arm shaking and stuff like that. And I finally could not even play in front of my violin teacher anymore. I was too nervous, and that was also a state of learned helplessness that I drove myself into, but it came from the trauma through humiliation from my mother and my grandfather. So very severe trauma, and also larger amounts of people laughing about me when I was a child. So that also happened. After that, before that I was kind of talkative, and then they kind of wanted to show that off in front of a large yacht club back in Germany, and that my grandfather was joining, and they were laughing about me. And after that, that was very traumatizing for me. I was just like 4 years old or 3 years old. After that, I wasn't so bubbly anymore. I didn't want to be seen by a lot of friends or people that were coming over, and I was hiding myself. I didn't want to talk anymore about the fairy tale books that my mother had read me, and that some of those stories that I had memorized, and because I liked them so much, and that I would recite in front of other people, and then I stopped doing this. So that also added to tremendously to the trauma of giving presentations. Making a video right now, although I know that this whole thing is not just recorded by me right now, it's also recorded by the hackers. Even if I deleted the video, if I deleted the video because I felt too insecure in the video, then that will prevent me from being seen by more than more than the hackers, more people than the hackers, of course. Maybe one person more, I don't know. But probably wouldn't be making such a huge difference. I don't know how many hackers are there. I call them hackers, but what they did is they bought a very extensive spy program. You can buy those. I don't know how much they cost. Several $1,000s, I guess. Paul said that someone in Israel invented those, and then the FBI bought them, and they were not allowed to use it because it went against our privacy legal system, the privacy laws, the privacy bills that are in effect. But a spy doesn't care, of course. A spy doesn't care if he breaches the law, or if he makes someone feel uncomfortable, or if he even causes trauma to some person who's that. The spy doesn't care. The spy is only interested in one thing, is stalking and spying. Okay. I don't know what is so interesting about me, but I don't feel very interesting. I feel kind of boring actually. So I don't even have very many viewers. So my videos are not very spectacular to most people. I gotta close the door because it's cold. Okay. Yes. I can't touch the door handle, so I have to do this with my foot. Mental illness, baby. Okay, so. He got the rawhide on, and he is busy for now. So that's very good. It's very cold outside, and I have cold hands. Maybe I'll wear the gloves. No, not right now. I'll put my hands under my butt, so that will work too. So I also have this jacket here. But anyway, yeah, learned helplessness, and I feel like I'm often getting trapped in that emotion of learned helplessness. I feel like I can't get out of that mental state. So, like I said earlier to the hackers, to the spies, that the only option I have sometimes in any specific situation, like where I feel powerless or helpless or hopeless or angry or jealous or whatever the emotion is, instead of panicking and doing something about it in order to change how I feel with force, which never really works because it just puts the emotion further into the back of the head, but it still doesn't go away. It will still come up. It still smolders, and it gets infected. It gets even snowballed, and if we do this persistently, always repressing our feelings over and over and over again, then by covering it up, by doing something else, by trying to manipulate how we feel, then, and this is one approach of course, that's also that Tony Robbins teaches. Tony Robbins teaches this approach of change your mental state, and it has its place, it has its validity. We have to do it. We have no other choice. Sometimes we cannot go into an inwardness meditation because the situation doesn't allow it, sometimes, like if there's a situation where we have to be driving, or we have to be walking a dog, or we have to take care of someone, we have to, in that moment, we have to get a grip, and we have to do what Tony Robbins says. We have to practice and put ourselves into a different mental state. That can be done through all kinds of techniques. That can be done through visualization, through specific types of meditations, like transcendental meditation puts you into a different state. It can be done through mind over body, mind over matter. We can put ourselves into a mental state where we deliberately practice calming down our nervous system, and so on. That all has they're all important modalities, and they have their place. What I'm talking about, though, is the therapy meditation, which is the inwardness meditation process. And that only works if I allow myself to be in the state that I'm in. So I am in this mental state right now, let's say I feel helpless. I feel hopeless. I'm in this state. Okay. I quit the chat room. I have nobody to talk to, like, where I know I have a bunch of people to talk to about psychology and interesting subjects. And we have had some very, very, very important conversations in the chat room. I have had the most important and the most interesting conversations in the chat rooms from all conversations that I've ever had in my entire life. Okay, so now that's something that puts things into perspective for people like Paul or anyone who would say, why do you bother with those chat rooms? Why do you, or my mother, for example, she would say, why would you subject yourself to this kind of abuse? There are many different people in the chat room, and sometimes there were very interesting people in the chat room, including, I have also seen 2 psychiatrists in those chat rooms before, like a couple of years ago. So, kind of like psychiatrists who have ruined their lives through pharma drugs and alcohol. Okay, so they prescribe their own drugs. Yeah, it's not good. Okay. I had conversations with them that were interesting. Okay, they took terrible offense, of course, but they're scholars. They know better than to come with insults, right? That's not their style. So because of that, they stuck with the conversation for longer without resorting to any kind of ad hominem attacks, against the human, against something the human, whatever human has, their hair color or their ugliness or whatever, so that's called ad hominem. And most people seem to resort to those, okay, when they lose the arguments. It's sad to see, but that totally ends conversation. It's like, okay, whatever, okay. But some people, even if they took offense, some didn't even, so that's very rare. But the psychiatrists always did take offense because that's their life. My life, my whole existence, my identity. There's my diploma on the wall, I've had so many clients, so many years, including Jodie Foster, blah, blah, blah. So that's my life. So, yeah, there's the ego. Yeah. And then someone says, this is all BS. It's like, you're pulling the rug out from under my feet, I'm getting mad. Of course they get mad. And some of them, they'll say something like, you bet you need to smoke some and lean back. That's another way of capping out of the conversation. It's also a little bit of yeah, little girl, smoke one. Don't be so upset. It's a bit of a put down. It's it's called infantilizing someone. Like you don't know what you're saying. You better lean back, Karen. Better smoke one and lean back and relax. I will never smoke one, ever, ever, ever. Okay. Yes, I'm a Karen. I'm not a little girl. I'm 56. I know what I'm talking about. Okay. And I too have studied psychology, and I too have studied rigorously, also on my own. I could easily do many tests, multiple choice tests, and would pass. Okay, in many fields now in psychology, even after I dropped out. So that's because I have continued learning on my own. So right now, with the knowledge I have right now, I could definitely get a diploma I could get a master's in psychology. I'm ready for dissertation work. I'm ready. We could do it. Let's get the shit together. Let's do a test, a field test, out in the public. But it's easier to do it on the internet or figure something out there. We'll do a multiple choice test of some sort, a psychology test that maybe make it lure people in with some kind of, you will find out who you are in this test. And then we get all the test persons, and then we get our quota of tested people, and we'll easily get maybe 500 people to do that test, and then we can do the statistical evaluation and so on. Yeah, I could do this, could do a dissertation on whatever my hypothesis will be. Okay, but no, I don't see the point in it, so what's the point in it? The point is here that I get my shit together psychologically. That's the whole point. That I do meditation and that I don't suffer. That's really that's my whole driving force forward. I don't want to suffer anymore. And and then I make videos and I talk to other people about it, and if that what I say resonates with someone, if people can relate to it, if I have some insights for someone, or I raise some questions that give people some questions to ask during such a session, such an inwardness meditation process, if I can help people in any way, that will be very rewarding, for me, for everyone. That would be really cool. Because that's really what I wanted to do all along with the subject of psychology. Then I talked to some people in school, and they wanted to become market psychologists. And I thought, wow, that goes like in the opposite direction of what I want to do, right? I want to learn psychology to help people, not to exploit them, not to manipulate them. But that's what Richard Berman does, read up on him. What's that? He has this non-profit, profit-making organization that's called Society for something consumer information or something like. They want to find out about you, the consumer. So that's what it. But they word themselves in a way where it sounds like it's for the consumer, but it's not. Whatever. But you can look him up, Richard Berman. So I wrote a long article about him, Richard Berman and the slander campaign against PETA. Okay. Richard Berman's favorite PETA slander that he has done for so many years, manipulating the public to hate PETA, the biggest animal rights organization in the world, founded by Ingrid Newkirk, who are actually really educating the public, who have done so much for the animals, for the land animals, like no other group. Okay, so they have snowballed, they have done so much work, they have done political work, they have gotten politicians to sign animal rights petitions into effect worldwide. Paul and I helped, okay, and why is Richard Berman slandering them? Because he's being paid for it. By who? By the corporations who are losing customers or not gaining more customers because of PETA. Fur industry dropped way down through PETA's efforts. And Richard Berman at work, knowing exactly how to manipulate the public. I had to explain all of this to my friend Donna. She was against PETA, and I had to explain this in detail to her. I told her, read my article, and this is very, very, very important. Most people, they just hear it from someone else, or they hear it on talk radio, or they read Richard Berman's slander campaigns that are infiltrated into different news outlets and so on, and then they think they got the real picture, but it's not. And they know how to word themselves, of course. So that's why Richard Berman studied psychology, to become a market psychologist, to manipulate you and to make money. Yeah, to make money on cost of exploited beings, animals, and people. It's very sad. That caused me shortness of breath. So just thinking about this, very sad, all of this. So my work is the opposite. I try to inform people. I try to empower people. I'm not going to use your insecurities to sneak a product on you, or some political view, or some hate campaign against someone. Okay, I want to empower you. I want to empower myself. I hope that my own empowerment, sunbeams of love, will shine out to you and into your brain, and inspire you to connect with your inner child, and to empower yourself, and to love yourself. Okay, that's really what I want to do. So earlier I sat down with this feeling. I feel helpless. I feel hopeless. I'm in a trap situation. This is a far cry from where I would like to be in my life. Where I'd like to be in my life is, oh my God, I can't even wrap my mind around it. I had a dream about this. Sometimes I have dreams at night. I had this unbelievable dream. This is so incredibly outrageous, that dream. I don't think I've ever had the dream to this degree. But I had some dreams that are all going in this direction, sort of. And flamboyant and colorful, like the brightest colors you can imagine. A dream of an actual dream, as in life dream. So I would dream. I had so many dreams. I would suddenly be in the future, and there were like simulations everywhere, and so colorful, and water wave simulations on buildings, and the buildings would be made out of a monitor material, where everything is digital. The buildings just, they show you video footage, like on every square foot of the masonry, and on cars, and really amazing. I guess those are some glimpses into the future. Very nice, so I'm wishing for it. I believe in it, not just believe in it. Oh. 333. Thank you, Blue God. The moment I said this, I am not kidding you. This is the Blue God saying, you're spot on. It's gonna happen. It's gonna be good. We're gonna have, an amazing technology. And this technology will save lives, will save this planet. And we will have robots and all of this. And we can make them in any shape we want. And we can make them in Elon Musk shape, or me, or Arnold Schwarzenegger, or my dog, okay? Or a European Basset Hound, or Paul. So, but we don't want the robots to be neurotic, of course. We want them to be. I don't know if there's such thing as flawlessness, but we want, because there's always more to improve. Always, as the Japanese always say, they use that word kaizen. constant and never-ending improvement. It's a philosophy, it's a way of living. Well, that's why they make good products, because they want improvement. They don't want to retract back, they don't want to stagnate, they don't want to bring the Stone Ages back, okay? They wouldn't want Islam to take over. So they're very careful on who they take into their country for a reason. But I have a problem with Japan also. What they do with the dolphins and Taiji and the whale hunting is absolutely unacceptable. But in regards to the products, constant never-ending improvement, I want them to be constantly and never-ending doing an improvement on their minds, on their psychology, on their ethics. Okay, I want them to take that into consideration as well, not just product perfection. So that's kind of bleak, right? A lot of them commit suicide, so a lot of them are suffering. Okay, they repress their emotions, and that's what happens. When you repress the emotion, you can be very good at repressing the emotions. You can do the Tony Robbins, you can do all of that kind of stuff that will put you also into a better mental state, and you can function better and so on. But the emotion is still there. The feeling from the past that's unresolved is still there. Okay, so, and then they repress that further and further. Then at some point, through drug use or alcoholism or whatever, or they get sick or whatever, they get the virus, then their defense mechanisms don't work so well anymore, and they can't keep that stuff from the past repressed, and it will come out like a fountain, because they've accumulated more and more and more of this, more and more repressing of present hurt that docks onto the past. And so we have to start with the present. We have to feel what it feels like in the present. That's what I did earlier. Felt bleak, I felt exhausted, I felt frustrated, I felt like I can't cope with anything, everything is over my head, and I feel trapped. And then I just sat down and I talked to my computer and the hackers, and I said, the only thing I can do, or what anyone can do in any given moment when we feel really, really, really frustrated or sad, or we feel really, really overwhelmed with an emotion, it's not to repress it or to run away from it or act it out on others or be angry or lashing out or taking drugs or any of these things. So we have to sit down with it. And one can fall very easily into trying to elicit something from someone else. Very easily get into a state where I fall into that state of self-pity. That's something that goes through my whole life, okay? Where I feel victimized, and then I want to appeal to the perpetrator or whoever I declare the perpetrator. They're just toddlers themselves. As I already said in my other videos, I go up to someone else who is terribly struggling or overwhelmed too, and I ask them, and I basically beg for them to see how I'm suffering. With other words, I'm kind of like expecting them to be my mommy, and they can't, because they're suffering. They haven't resolved anything in their lives. They're running away from their pain. They're repressing it. They're struggling with it. That pain is pushing, and they're pushing against it. They're in resistance. So the only option I have in that moment is I sit down here on the couch and I allow myself to feel that feeling of bleakness and helplessness and overwhelm and stress and hopelessness. Like, okay, so this situation isn't going to change. I'm going to stay here for the rest of my life. That's how it feels, okay, in that moment. And it feels bad, and everyone wants to run away from that, of course. But if we try to run away from it, we're in resistance. We snowball it. It becomes stronger. It becomes more forceful. It pushes forward even more. As Teal Swan always said, what we resist persists. Okay, so of course it persists if we don't give it any attention. We have to eventually sit down and say, wait a minute, what's going on with me? What's going on here? Why am I so stressed out? Why am I having this vasoconstriction with breathing problems? Where I can't even finish my sentence without gasping for air. What's going on here? Why am I feeling so stressed out? Okay, they bullied me. They threatened my life. Okay, they threatened to burn my house down. They showed me a knife and all of that. They said they want to make me scream and suffer. People already said that, like, I've already seen this 6 years ago. People saying something like this. At some point where I said, do I need to contact the FBI? And then they would go, I was just kidding. A guy named Harry, I don't know who that is, could be Zane. I have no idea. I think it was Zane. I don't know. I don't even know if Danny is Zane. That's another possibility. They come with many different faces. They say they have thousands of different faces. That's an escape mechanism that makes them feel like they have control over other people. It's an act out. It's not facing your truths. It's not facing your life. It's not facing what you need to be facing. And because of that what you're not facing is pushing further forward. It could be whatever it is. It could be feelings of helplessness, feelings of being dominated, feelings of, your parents could have dominated you. They could have abused you, which I think is the case. In some form, maybe psychologically. Okay, and you have a trauma and you haven't addressed it because you're running away from it by trying to dominate other people, by trying to play the phantom party with the masks, by laughing and saying, ha ha, you're confused, you don't know who we are. You don't know who I am, but I know who you are. That's a power game, okay? And it's not real power. It's a self-lie, of course. It just causes the other person that you are communicating or trying to communicate with or trying to overpower, it causes the other person to retract and to abandon you. Yeah. I abandoned the whole chat room. I had to, because I overdosed the second time. Okay. So if you make someone suicidal, expect to be abandoned. Okay. The other person has no other choice. I can overdose and then I won't be there anymore. Then I can come back as the Great Dane that I'm going to come back in my next life. But, I was planning on resolving things in this lifetime. This is a school. I wanted to do more resolving. I wanted to do more healing. It's a soul healing and learning journey. We use this lifetime that we have to do it. Okay. Whenever our end is, that's when our end is. It's not a tragedy. It's just that if I think about it, do I want to commit suicide Or do I want to live a couple of more years and do more healing and more introspecting and maybe inspiring other people and maybe saving some lives because of that? Thank you, Blue God. So my choice is, yeah, I'll take the rough road of existence for a couple of more years. Existence is rough, is harsh. Okay, it really is. And I sit with that, and I don't run away from it, and I cry. The moment I cry this self-pity out, without eliciting some kind of response from someone else, like, please love me, but in act out form, bad, then I'm in resistance to my own pain, because I'm recreating my pain so I don't have to see the pain. Like Ernie in Sesame Street, who said to, where Bert said to Ernie, the water faucet is dripping, I can't sleep. And Ernie turns the vacuum cleaner on. And Bert said, why would you do that? Well, that way you don't hear the water dripping anymore. Now that's my absolute favorite scene from the Sesame Street, because it is synonymous for our lives when we try to cover up our pain, our emotional pain. People do it with horror movies. That's like turning on the vacuum cleaner. I watch a horror movie so that way I don't have to face my inner horror from childhood. Or I can watch E.T. films and I'm mesmerized, and I don't have to think about how bleak my life is. So there's hope out there. There's ETs. I can relate to this personally. So I have done horror movie shit also in the past. Doesn't work out. Even threw me over the edge one time. I had such a nervous breakdown from one. It was just the icing on the cake, basically. It was the animal rights activism in 2012 was so overwhelming. And then predictions of conspiracy people that the world comes to an end, including my best friend Lana. But she would just thrive on that idea. And I'm not making fun of her, it's just her life is a freaking mess. She has nothing under control, and Armageddon is a relief for her. And that's how sad it is. Okay. And so when I talked against Armageddon, her ego didn't like it, right? And then when I said to her in 2013, in January 2013, Armageddon didn't happen. Now what? Then that was our last phone conversation until she hung up. Finished with me. Never talked to me again. Okay. But, I wasn't very supportive in that conversation towards her. I wasn't helpful for her. I was in my own shit. Obviously, it takes two to tango, for a phone conversation to go really, really sour. Obviously, two people both in their shit, both insist on some different theory or something, So when the other person is actually using that theory to keep their head over water, and the other person doesn't see it, but the one person's theory is frightening the other person, so it's like, no. That was right after that panic attack. Not long after that panic attack that lasted, psychotic. The psychotic episode was, I don't know, lasted for about a week. It was really, really the worst thing I've ever experienced in my life. And I watched horror movies to drown it out, but I did the opposite. It just caused a fusion, and then something ripped, and I could actually hear the rip in my brain, snapped like a rubber band that snapped, literally snapped. And I was so shocked. I thought, oh my God. I was convinced that the corporate agenda was doing over that so on me, and they were trying to do me in. So then that lasted, that entire paranoia phase. It got better in time, but it lasted for half a year. That it was that intense. So from then on, I'd already been watching Jiddu Krishnamurti videos, and from then on I had been watching Jiddu Krishnamurti all day long, every day. My dad wanted me to see a psychiatrist. I decided to watch Jiddu Krishnamurti videos instead. That was much more helpful for me than taking pharmaceutical drugs. Okay. And I watched Jiddu Krishnamurti videos, binge watched like for 10 hours per day. As I was sitting there, my body shaking in fear. And then because of the videos, I would fall asleep while listening to the videos because I hadn't been getting enough sleep because of the internal terror that I had. I still have this paranoia, but it is much more manageable now. And I also started to have paranoia about the people in the chat room. I was convinced, I was very convinced like 10 days ago when I tried to overdose again. I was convinced that they were trying to make me crazy and they were trying to make me commit suicide. And I was convinced that they are paid for this by the corporate agenda, and I was convinced that they studied psychology for that purpose of manipulating people and getting paid for it. Manipulating people into committing suicide and being paid for it by whatever. It's a form of hitman work. It's like a mafia type of. I'm sure this exists. I don't know if that actually was the case with me, with these people. Paul would say that's grandiose paranoia. You think you're that important that they'll spend so much money on you to get rid of you, right? I don't see, if I think about this, ridiculous, right? I am not a threat to anyone, to the corporate agenda, to the Rothschilds, to Lockheed Martin. I'm an activist. I stand up against them. I speak out against them. But do I have that much leverage? No. I have 5 people watch my videos. So I don't have that much leverage. So why would they do this? So then my brain calms down and I go, okay, so this is just paranoia. I gotta calm down. But whether it's paranoia or not, okay, they were hostile and that was psychologically abusive. Okay. And I always feel addressed when people are saying nasty things or negative things. When someone says something positive, flattering, nice, supportive, I don't feel addressed. I would only feel addressed if someone says something supportive, if they actually addressed me by my name. And one time there was another Nicole in the chat room. And then I thought, oh, there you go. Okay, that wasn't for me, that was for that other Nicole. So, and that's how it goes. So I have extremely low self-esteem in the sense of feeling loved, feeling liked. feel hated, I feel despised, I feel looked down on, I feel ignored. I don't feel loved, I don't feel appreciated. And this is probably unfair to some people, because I know that there are some people who have said very nice things to me. I apologize to you. This is not against you, or I'm not ignoring your support, but I am a very shaken up person psychologically, and I'm trying to heal my wounds. And here is my self-pity coming up, and it's okay that it's coming up. It's okay. It's okay. I don't want to lie to myself. I don't want to pretend I am fine when I'm not. It helps to do Tony Robbins and all of this, and to do some practicing on your mind and on your wellness, and all of this is part of holistic healing. But the feelings, the childhood trauma doesn't go anywhere. It's there, and we have to address it. I have to address it. I have to sit with it in meditation, and I have to feel it, and I have to cry my way through it, and I come out at the end of the tunnel, and I have insights, and then I can do something with those insights, and I can put the memory, I can turn the memory of trauma into just memory that is neutral. Okay, that's the integration process. The stuff is not floating around in a crazy way where it's painful and unresolved, but it becomes integrated and organized, like putting it into folders, like photo albums, at the back of your head, where it no longer has this urgency of needing to be seen. Then it becomes just information that is neutral and that is there, and I can say, yeah, I have been abused, and it is neutral. Okay, I can say, I've been through a lot, I have transformed this, and I can help other people with the same process as well. But much of it is still unprocessed in me. Okay, and being traumatized, by my mother, my grandfather, by classmates and some teachers, that left me shaken up with a form of PTSD, okay? And that needs to be addressed. That needs to be felt, and I need to sit with it, and I need to breathe with it and feel through it. Okay. Take care.